Hey everyone, Nicole Steckline, Technical Agronomist for DeKalb and Asgrow in Northeast Iowa. Today is Sunday, May 30th. It's Memorial Day weekend of 2021, and I'm here to talk to you guys about the historic frost event that we just had in the Midwest. So, want to talk through corn and soybeans. Soybeans really are the ones that we're most concerned about. On the bright side, you guys should be able to enjoy your Memorial Day weekend because we really shouldn't be going out and evaluating stands and making any decisions until about Tuesday, because if anything has actually died, we won't really be able to know until about Tuesday. So want to get you guys up to speed on what the evaluation and decision making process is going to be once we do get out there coming into this mid next week. So depending on where you're at, north to south is kind of going to determine what levels of damage and injury you're going to be seeing. Now, I think that we can all expect that if you already had your post herbicide on, you're probably going to be seeing some effects from the cold. Now, when we think about spraying herbicides onto this crop, we spray herbicides onto the weeds so that they suck them up and die. But that herbicide also gets sucked up into our crop. So when that happens, these plants, the corn plants, the soybean plants, they need to metabolize and chew through that. Cooler temperatures means that they're metabolizing slower. It's going to take longer to chew through that active ingredient. So no matter where you are, north to south, I do expect us to see a little bit more crop response to our herbicide applications. Now, the other thing that we're going to see is even if you only got down to about 45, 42 degrees, we may still be seeing some injury from the cold temperatures. Now, the injury that we're going to be seeing is nowhere near as severe as what they'll be seeing on the Iowa-Minnesota border, but it's called silver leaf syndrome. And it's called that because from the field level, it's going to make that cornfield kind of look like it's got a gray-green hue to it. When you look at the leaves themselves, they've almost got kind of a silver, a gray coloration to it. So this is caused by any horizontal leaf surface was losing radiant energy so quickly that it damaged that top layer of leaf tissue. So probably not going to give us a whole lot of adverse effects, but when it looks like that crop is going backwards and not getting greener, that's what's going on, is that silver leaf effect. We saw this not too many years ago. I think it was 2016 was the last time we saw that. We can see that with temperatures even in the mid 40s. So even if you're on the Iowa-Missouri border, you could still be seeing some of that. Now, the next level of injury that we'll see is basically just frosted tissue. We saw that earlier on this year. It's not too much of a concern. Now, the next level of injury is what you guys further north are seeing. And your plants, this happened Friday night, Saturday morning. So you guys have probably got fields that are already turning black. And just the injury that I'm seeing down here in Dubuque County, it's already making me sick. Try and enjoy your weekend. We're going to get out there and look at it Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So we all know that the growing point of the corn plant until it gets to be about V5, V6 is below the ground. So it's much more protected. That doesn't mean that it couldn't die, but in most cases we're probably not going to see a whole lot of plant death. But we still want to check on it. So what I typically like to do is take basically a full stand count and determine how many plants I have. And then, so if I'm in 30-inch rows, I'm going to measure off 17 feet, 5 inches, because that's going to give me 1/1000th of an acre. And I like to dig up every single one of those plants so that I have an idea percentage-wise of how many are going to survive or not. So the way that looks like is I'm going to take my row and then dig up all those plants. Now, obviously, these plants didn't get hit quite as hard, so these look a lot better than what you guys are going to be digging up. But you're going to want to dig that plant up and then take a knife and split it down the center so we can get a look at that growing point, at that crown. So this plant here is obviously still alive, and we can see that nice white tissue, and when we push on it, it's also very firm. So the growing point of this plant is alive and well. This plant's going to survive. Now, if we're looking at it on Monday or Tuesday already, that tissue could be dead. It just isn't showing that dead color yet because it's not decaying yet. That's why it's important to kind of give it a push too, because it might not have that dead brown color, but it could still be dead. But if you start squishing on it and it feels a little squishy, it's not firm, then that tissue is probably dying, and you'll need to count that as a dead plant. Now, when it comes to the decision-making process, I'm going to be using two different tables. So the first table is the one that we typically use when we're making replant decisions because we didn't have good emergence. So what we're going to do is use that table, and we're going to say, okay, if I get a perfect stand of 35,000 and I'm planting on June 5th, we would be in that planting window if we were to replant. What is the percentage of total yield? And it looks like we would, if we were to rip up a stand today and replant it, get a perfect stand, we're only at about 70% of total yield potential. So if we ripped it up, we would be looking at about a 30% yield loss. The other table that I'm going to use is actually a table that we use to determine how much yield loss is going to be there if we have complete defoliation because of hail. So at V5, if we have complete, V5, V7, if we have complete defoliation, you guys up further north, you're gonna have complete defoliation because everything on the top of that plant is dead. We're looking at about a 9% yield loss. So there's going to be very few instances in which we're gonna need to plow up stands in the corn region. Most of it's going to make it. Now, there may be some scenarios where we still have to manage it. Since we will have so much dead tissue on the top of these plants, it's possible that that dead tissue is going to tie up the new growth and not allow it to unfurl and continue to grow, and that can also kill the plant. So there also may be some scenarios where we have to go in with a disc buying or a bat wing, something of that nature, and use it just to shear off the tops of those plants, kind of free them up so that they can continue to grow. So these are decisions that will probably be made end of next week just to see if they are able to grow through any of that dead tissue. So that's the corn. On to the beans, the real concern. On to the soybeans. So just like on the corn, the most widespread issue that we're going to be having with the cold temperatures is going to be response to herbicides. So the cooler temperatures means that they're going to have a harder time chewing through and metabolizing that herbicide. So what we'll probably be seeing the most of is these kind of leaf-shaped, we call that drawstring. So that is what happens when it takes longer to metabolize a group 15 or very long chain fatty acid mode of action. Those are the herbicides that give us our residual control of grasses and small seeded broadleaves such as water hemp. But when this happens, and it's very common, this is what's happening when it just takes longer to metabolize a group 15 herbicide. The other thing that we will potentially be seeing is it's going to take it a longer time to elongate. Those beans are kind of going to be stunted. In very severe cases of herbicide injury, you're going to be seeing just where any of those other trifoliates that usually come out start elongating. They're all just going to kind of stack on top of each other. It's going to take it a while to grow out of this. So that's going to be pretty widespread north to south. So when it comes to frost damage, obviously soybeans are our first concern because that growing point is above the surface as soon as it comes out of the ground. So the first thing we're going to want to do is take the plants out of the ground. And so here are our cotyledons. Obviously that is what was the seed, came out of the ground. That's the cotyledons. And then it elongated. We've got some stem. We've got our unifoliate leaves right here. And then if you pull those down, you're going to have your first little set of trifoliates. This spot right here, this is our bud basically. This is our growing point. So when we evaluate the soybean plant itself, we're going to look at the stem below the cotyledons, okay? If we've got dead black tissue below the cotyledons, it's done. We have no hope for that soybean to be able to grow out of this. The next thing we're going to evaluate is the apical meristem, or that primary growing point. Okay, so we're gonna check for that growing point right there to see if that is dead and brown and gone. Now, that can be dead and brown and gone, but as long as we've got below the cotyledons is alive, we still have hope, because soybeans have the ability to put on multiple growing points, unlike corn. So as long as this is still alive, if this is dead, what we're going to do next is look between the cotyledons right next to the stem. Now I've got an example of that. So this is a soybean plant that actually lost its main growing point, that apical meristem, from, I don't know, something ate it or it got burnt off by a herbicide, something. But so the stem is still alive. It's still firm. If I cut into it, it's still white. But when we look between here, this right there is where that main growing point had been, but it was destroyed. So pretend like that got destroyed by frost for a second. These are the two growing points that showed up from between the cotyledons. So when we go out and evaluate these soybean stands, make sure that you're looking for these little, I don't know how well you can see it, but there are these two little buds here growing, and they're green. So make sure that you're evaluating those little buds. If those are dead, the plant is going, if you've lost your main growing point and those two side buds are also dead, you're done. If below the cotyledon is dead, you're done. But if below the cotyledon is still healthy, you've lost your main growing point, but your little tiny buds down here are okay, they're going to be all right. Again, we're going to want to take a stand count, determine what our survived stand count is, and then again use those soybean replant tables to see if it's worth tearing it up and replanting or possibly interseeding to make sure that we have enough plants to get to canopy, to make sure that we don't have too much weed pressure as well. So I'm going to be going out and doing a lot of these evaluations early next week. Feel free to call, text, or email, get your FSR out there, get your dealer out there. We want to get out there, make decisions, and make the right decisions. So call, text, and email. I hope you guys enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.